back to another episode of Beekeeping Buddies. I'm Steven.
And I'm Luke.
We have got another show of beekeeping to talk about. It's been finally cooled off.
And slowed down.
Yes.
It's kind of nice.
It's nice to be able to go out in the yard and work bees and not be miserably soaking wet. I was out there today putting Formic Pro treatments on, and there was a little breeze out there, and it was a little wet underneath the suit when I was done, but took it off, started dry. It was really nice. 71.
With Formic Pro, right? It's good. It at least means, I haven't looked at the calendar as far as temperatures go, but it means it's below 85 for the next 10 days.
Yep.
Which is good. And I'm actually done with my mite treatments. I got to go through and be looking at mite counts. Did you mite counts before putting them on?
No. I know. We talk about it. We do it. And I probably could scare up my easy check if I wanted to and my alcohol if I wanted to. But,
yeah, it happens. It's did you do 2 pads of Formic or 1?
I did 2 because I don't want to.
2 for 10?
I had 2 for 10. I know what my 10-day forecast looks like. My 10-day forecast is well under 85 for the next 10 days. And I'm going to be gone over Labor Day weekend, which will be in that extended past that 10 days. So I won't be able to come back and put a second pad on, and it's worked for me in the past. And if I lose a queen, I've got a bunch more hives. Right now, I put out 16 pads, I think, is what I'll end up putting out. I don't have all of them right now. I know somebody who's gonna sell me a couple extra out of his supply. You know anybody like that?
Yeah, I got some in the garage.
And I put out 11 today. And I got 4 more to do. So I was at 50. I guess that's 15.
15.
And that won't end up. I'll probably just OVA the little 5 framers I've got that I'm going to try to do some Palmer nukes or something with.
Yeah.
And then
we were talking about the little tiny one, that little 5 framer that we dump the swarm
into. Yeah, I checked it today, and it seemed like only about a third of the population I dumped in there hung around.
Yeah.
But it's still it's about 5 frame nuke size for this time of year. It's not super booming like it would be in the spring.
Sure.
And if they had nice drawn combs, which they don't, they'd be doing. She's doing her thing. Except they're going to be short. And really, I think that hive is really a safety net for if something comes up queenless in the next basically 2 months.
Yeah, you might be able to just pull. If it comes bad, you can always either squish the queen or do something that way, and then move those frame, leave them for a day or so, and then move them into a queen right hive that's slow on pop.
Yeah,
population.
I mean, the population is not really going to help me. It's the laying queen.
Yeah,
that's my biggest ability just to take if I need.
Yeah.
So and the reality is, I think at this time of year, having gone into that many hives that I personally own or managing, I guess 3 or 4 of those were the club hives, and not coming up with all being queen right, I think is the first time in a bunch of years that's been the case. Usually about this time of year, I'll open up at least 1, maybe 2, and I'll be like, what are you guys doing? You guys don't look right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll take that as a small win.
I had a little tiny 5 frame that I was hoping that I pulled the queen from and sold it. And I was hoping that they'd requeen. They had queen cells and stuff, and they did not. They had not requeened. We were past the due date by about a week. I was keeping my fingers crossed. Maybe she was just slow, but she didn't requeen. But they get eaten this time of year.
So you already combined those with somebody else?
I already went and found another hive and combined them, and they were quite happy. Did you
do a proper newspaper with that, or did you just shove some frames over and drop them in?
I put a second box on top. I didn't do a newspaper combine because that population was so low.
Yeah.
It was like 4 frames of bees, maybe.
Yeah.
So I put them in, and then I go back and check them in a couple days. You'll see their behavior, like when they're queenless this time of year, they're real jittery. They act nervous. So I have my helper who's a new beekeeper, and he commented, he goes, "What's going on? Why are they so nervous, jittery?" And I'm like, well, they're queenless, and they act like this time of year. because they're facing their demise, right?
Yeah.
They don't have a queen. They don't have the ability to make a queen, and it's coming to an end for them, and they can tell the weather's changing.
Feed numbers or honey numbers. I had taken honey a couple weeks ago for kind of a summer honey, and I noticed some of the hives were still really heavy. Some of the deeps, double deeps were 40, 50 pounds. They were a hoist.
Yep.
A couple of them were only about in the 30-pound range, but I'm not real concerned about that. I was looking at the goldenrod out there at Wildlife Prairie, and it was just starting to get a yellow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's the phase. You get the green tops, and then the green tops sort of get. It's not yellow, but it's like a lightish green right before their blooms are going to open.
Yeah.
And we're right there, at least for the stuff that was out there.
Okay. So we're maybe a week.
A week. I was going to say a week out until we were in full bloom, and so we still got the goldenrod to go, and then I had some that had honey cap on deep frames, and that honey cap was notably missing today.
Yeah.
And those were my a deep and two mediums is what they are now, and they're a little light, and I think I'll probably be feeding those next week after I come back and see how the goldenrod is doing. Hopefully, we get a little rain. The goldenrod hangs in there a little longer. If it's dry, we won't get much out of that.
Yeah, we've had really strange summer this year. Like we had like it was a dry spell, and the grass just barely started to turn brown, and then it rained, and everything's green, nice and green right now. But I have the same. I have a few hives that are a little light. I put feeders in them last week, and fed last week. I do in-frame feeders because I really don't like the top bar or top, whatever you want to call them, top feeders.
Top feeders, yeah.
It seems to go bad too fast. Even if I put vinegar and like change that pH of that syrup, they just don't get up in there. Or the opposite happens, and like the lid doesn't fit quite right, and they get up there and they drown themselves.
Yep.
And you have just this full container full of drowned bees. So the in-frame feeders is what I do. I just move frames around, the ones that are not quite drawn out, and get those set. I also did another open feeding. I'll probably do another time lapse. I did one a few years ago with my phone. They did 2 gallons of 2 gallons of sugar water this time.
1-to-1?
1-to-1 that I had left over after feeding the couple of hives that I started to feed. And I did open feed just to see, and it was loud enough that at my parents' back door over by, so it was by the apiary has a window in it, my honey house, and sitting at the back door watching the river, I could hear the hum of the bees.
This is about 15 or 20 feet away.
Yeah. So I walked over to see, and they were thick. Like you couldn't see the feeder, you couldn't see the medium that it was on, and usually they're pretty nice when they're feeding. These guys were not nice.
Crabby?
A little crabby, rude, and I got a few bumps and told in no uncertain terms that I was not welcome.
This is their feed.
Over by the feed. Yeah. If I wanted it, I had to fight them for it.
Speaking of a crowd, I understand you took some hives out to a guy who had planted some buckwheat.
Yeah. They have a duck. It's a duck club for hunting, a private duck club. Well, you have to pay to get in. It's quite a bit to get in, I found out. Anyway, so they plant buckwheat for the ducks to bring the ducks in. And so they have quite a bit of acreage that is corn, and then everything that's not corn right now is all planted in buckwheat. So
And you took over how many hives?
6 hives on just 6 hives on a trailer. This is the first time I've put hives on a trailer and moved them away from the apiary. I had a little bit of heartache doing that. Also in those, you had a variation of weights, right? Some of them were, I lifted all 2-man because I had a guy there to help me. Strapped him down with a ratchet strap, and then just lift him with the ratchet strap. And some of them were light, and some of them were really not pleasant to lift. But trailer full, put 6 of them on there.
And you took double deeps with 1, 2, 3 supers? How many supers?
Well, just one super, just to see what's going on, because they're having a really hard time with buckwheat here this year.
And have you been out there since? Because you took that over there over a week ago, right? It was probably a week ago.
Just a week ago. Yesterday.
And so you haven't been out to see how the nectar's coming in?
No. I'm interested. I'll make it out there this week, but
did you put extra supers on the trailer, or are you going to have to haul those with you?
I'll haul them with me, just to see what's going on, and see how they're doing. They're really excited to have them because the seed set in them is not usually very good. Not bad.
Because they're pollinated. They're a bug pollinated plant.
They are they're a bug pollinated plant. So, and I've also heard that buckwheat. There's real mixed reviews from folks that have said I really don't
about
like
a buckwheat honey.
Yeah, buckwheat honey, real heavy, strong honey. We also had USDA come out this week.
Yeah, so at our meeting, our club meeting, there was a guy in the back who said that he was new to the USDA. So for everybody who doesn't know, Peoria there's like 5 USDA facilities spread across the country: a north, an east, a west, a central, I think, something like that. And
there's a southern one too.
Yeah, they were like regional.
Yeah,
I think there's 5 in the U.S. and the central one got plopped down in Peoria, Illinois, and then in the 60s, they had a 60s or 70s, I don't remember the exact date, they had a plan to expand all of the USDA facilities to add more research at each of the facilities. And so they started with the one here in Peoria, and then after they got the one in Peoria done, they never rolled it out to the other facilities. So of the 5 facilities, we have the largest USDA research facility for agriculture stuff in the country.
So I didn't know that.
I've
seen the buildings and I've been there, and they're not small buildings. They are. I mean, 8 floors tall-ish would be my guess, each of them, and there's at least 5 buildings there. There's a lot of property and a lot of.
And it doesn't look like just office space. One of those buildings looks like a proper Caterpillar test facility. There's like a chimney, well, air quote chimney. There's a stack that comes out of the roof like every 15 feet.
Yeah.
And I think those are vents for all of the flume hoods and all the laboratory spaces and all that kind of stuff. And the roof is just covered with them.
Yeah. I didn't get to go inside, but I did meet with the USDA guys, the head of the entomology group that works there. So his background is on mosquitoes, but they've been told that they need to go look into pollinators and pollinators specifically for crops. So honeybees are what they're looking at, and they're looking at pests and what they can do about the pests that we see. And they're really excited on this time of year because I told them that if you're really looking for pests this time of year, you kind of missed the varroa mites to have they wanted some varroa mites to see if they could raise them, which is kind of a weird request, right? Like, how do you raise a single varroa mite?
Well, I mean, the thing that struck me as the most weird about it was he shows up at our local bee club
with a bunch of beginners. It's mostly beginners there.
And meanwhile, the Illinois State University, U of I, is 2 hours east of us.
Yeah.
On the other side of Illinois, Champaign.
With another lab there.
And they already have an established entomology lab that does beekeeping and does beekeeping research. And it seemed odd.
I don't know how much research they do. That would be interesting to see. I know they do some, but I've only ever seen one.
I know the big animal veterinary research facilities there because I've taken one of my goats there.
Yeah,
and it's impressive.
Yeah,
but the point is, if you're wanting to know if you have questions on setting up hives to do research things, there's a resource.
Those are the guys I talked to.
Yeah, that's not that far. And we've talked to some of those people over the years to have come talk to the club and graduate students and stuff. And I'm like, there are these people that know, because you ask a hobby beekeeper, hey, we'd like to come out and get some small hive beetle, and we want to raise small hive beetle. I'm like, I I don't know how to raise small hive beetle. I'm like,
Not on purpose.
I'm trying to, every time I take my lid off, I'm squishing them, right? And because that was my first question to you when you were like, hey, the USDA guy was out and we gave him small hive beetle. I'm like, how did you give him small hive beetle? I'm like, every time I try to pick them up, I squish them with my fingers. I'm like, they're pretty small, and I've got, pretty decent sized gorilla paws. And like, if I'm trying to pinch those to pick them up, I'm like, I'd damage feet. I'm like, I don't know. Did you tweezer them? Like, how did you, and you were like, well, we just picked them up.
I just picked them up. I might have damaged some of their feet, but they're pretty difficult to kill. If you're going to squish them, they squish pretty easy.
They squish pretty easy. So when you say they're difficult to kill, and I'm like, my fingertip says otherwise.
When you slide them and pick them up, they're pretty hard to damage, I think. So anyway, I basically would wait for them to get to the edge of a frame as they scramble, and you just slide them off slightly and throw them into a container. The good news is that cutout that we did, that I took the comb from.
No, it was a tree. We didn't tell everybody about the tree.
Oh, that's right. We did another cutout in a southern elm. Oak.
Was it southern oak? I thought it was just red oak.
Southern oak.
So we show there's a bee tree down in my yard, and we show up, and it's a 3-foot diameter trunk of a tree, and it's like literally laying in a side yard.
Well, hold on. She said a branch out of my tree fell, and here's a zoomed in picture of it, and there's some bees in it. Can you come help and get the bees out? But as Steve said, it's not a branch. It is
listen. The last
50-foot tall tree.
The last time I got called for bees in a tree in a branch.
Oh yeah,
it was
at the university too.
It was at the university, and I drove my trailer over there because I figured the only time we've ever pulled bees out of a tree that was in a branch was literally in a branch, and it was an 8-inch branch.
Yeah.
Now, that happened to be 60 feet off the ground,
yeah.
And the guy had to lower it down to us and then promptly, took off like a bat out of hell because, there's bees there and I'm the tree guy.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's been the last trunk section I had in my trailer was probably 30 inches in diameter, and I had the guy cut out about 30 inches of it and set it in my trailer. And this was another 30 to 36-inch hollow tree, and I cut the side open. Yeah. I cut a 4-foot section out that split off, and because it was all split and not really rotten, but it
was hollow.
It was hollow, and so when it hit the ground, it sort of exploded right there at that one spot because it was weak.
Yeah.
And I just kept cutting away at it with the chainsaw, and I brought my sledgehammer because I knew it would split well if you kind of cut out where you know where to put the cuts, and it's pretty easy to slab off sections and split off sections, and then you get to the meaty part inside, and we vacked out some bees, and then because the comb's pancake when the tree hits the ground, the bees can't manage that, and then the small hive beetles move in and slime it.
Yeah, and we had to get a new. In the meantime, the bee vac lid died. It turned out the board in there fried for some reason. And the charger. It actually fried the charger too. So I ran up to Myers Bees, which is the only local place that carries that bee vac.
Local. We're going to air quotes local. That's a 3-hour drive north.
Yeah. Grabbed a new lid and came back. And worked great.
But the comb that we had threw in a tub that had the small hive beetle larvae in it apparently had continued to prosper in the week or so since.
Yeah.
And so you were able to hand him a whole handful of slimy larvae.
About a baseball hand size. I put a glove back on, he had little containers that he left, and I got about a baseball size of chewed up wax / bee larva. Or not bee larva.
Small hive beetle
larva.
Yeah.
And,
which actually look like little maggots, right? It's just like a crawling mass of maggots.
They look just like fly maggots.
Yeah. I mean, they're smaller, though, but yes.
Yeah. And I put those in a container.
They're wriggly, and they're just,
I murdered the rest of them. The rest of them drowned, but I put the ones in that handful in the container and drove it over to the USDA. And they're
super excited. And you're like, how do you raise small hive beetle? And you're like, as a beekeeper,
I don't know.
I don't want to know how to raise small hive beetle, right? Like, you talk to a researcher who's researching small hive beetle and ask them how they raise them, because I don't want to ruin a hive for you to put small hive beetles in.
Well, I know that they're in the ground. I know that burrow into the ground.
Yeah, and then like caring for them. Like, are you going to put dirt in your lab and raise them all inside, or
So
you can put them in a greenhouse?
Interesting old fact about Luke in college was that I worked for the Threewood Project, and I took care of the ant lion that we raised and the hissing cockroaches. Now, the antlions are raised in a temperature-controlled closet in little cups because the antlions live in the sand. They're the guys that dig in the sand, and they have the little funnel. And the lions walk by, and they fall down into the sand into their open, waiting mouths.
Sir, the only animal that I know of that's a lion is like a 400-pound cat. This is unless we're talking about Sarlacc pit here.
It's like a miniature Sarlacc pit for ants. Is what they are. They're ant lions.
It's a Star Wars reference, guys.
They're anyway. So I fed the ant lions at U of I. So I do know that they have little cups that they raise those in temperature-controlled rooms. So I'm guessing humidity, temperature-controlled room with little cups with these larvae in there, and
they do like the dark.
They like the dark.
If you put them in the sun, they bake, and then they don't. They die.
Actually, the ones in the container were in the sun.
Yeah, but
they do, as long as they have something to hide under.
Yeah.
They do fine.
The ones underneath were fine. There was none on the surface, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we have some good in the news this week.
Man, we've been dry in the news, and all of a sudden I found 2 articles.
Man, and I got this one article sent to me by like 3 different people on 2 different Discords. And it's all about, I guess there's new research on, somebody decided that our artificial pollen substitutes were lacking. And so they were doing research on what is actually in natural pollen, and they determined that natural pollen has got a number of sterols, that's STEROLS, that our artificial pollen substitutes do not have.
Yeah.
And so they got this idea that, hey, how could we get sterols into our artificial pollen subs?
So sterols are a lipid. They're a fat, and they happen in plants and insects and some animals. They're like padding for cell structure.
Because I guess it's been noted that the brood growth, the amount of brood the hive will produce on artificial pollen subs has always been not great compared to natural pollen. And I guess they did some research to determine that what's missing is probably some sterols. And so then they figured out, okay, so how can we come up with a way to make sterols for our pollen subs? And the way they've decided to do this is with an engineered yeast.
Yeah.
And so with some fancy CRISPR genetic wizardry, we have replaced a section of their genetic code that is responsible for making a form of cholesterol for the yeast. So within the yeast, it would form a small bit of yeast cholesterol. And instead of a yeast cholesterol, we substituted in a genetic code that makes a sterol, which is, like a
23-methylene cholesterol is what it makes.
Yeah. And so I guess
24 methylene cholesterol.
And so then you can grow this yeast that instead of a teeny tiny amount of cholesterol in it, has a teeny tiny amount of sterol in it. And so this was a discussion we were having pre-podcast is what's the mechanism for the sterol? Because a lot of the yeasts we use, we want the yeasts for their byproduct, right? So you feed the yeast sugar and it poops out carbon dioxide, which makes our bread rise.
Mead.
Yeah,
or beekeepers.
You feed yeast some sugar and it poops out alcohol.
Yep.
And so we're usually interested in the yeast byproduct, where in this case, we are not so much interested in the yeast feeding on something and producing a byproduct we want. They're actually eating the yeast itself.
That has more sterols in it.
So we just want to grow the yeast, and then that yeast is going to have a sterol in the yeast body itself. We're going to then mix that yeast with our pollen sub, and then that will bring needed sterols to our pollen sub, and that they claim is increasing our brood production by
15 times.
which seems like an awful lot.
It is.
Which we then had a question of, what does that actually mean? And the best we could figure is we've observed through our beekeeping time that the amount of eggs that a queen will lay is relative to the size of the colony and the available resources that the colony has. And so many times we've seen examples where the queen just isn't laying well. She's kind of stuck in like a 4 or 6 inch pattern of brood, right? She only lays that many eggs, and we know she can lay like almost an entire frame a day, right? And so you're like, why aren't you laying more eggs? And the reality is we don't have the foragers to bring back enough resources to feed all of those young.
Yeah, and let's be clear, right? So the young are fed royal jelly, and the royal jelly is created by the nurse bees, and the nurse bees consume mostly pollen in that portion of their time that actually activates the gland, the pharyngeal gland, which is underneath their eye. It actually makes royal jelly that they spit out their mouth. So the sterols are things that exist in pollen, right? We talked about that already. And so since we are creating the sterols that exist in pollen that can feed the bees, the nurse bees that usually need pollen to eat, we are now able to supplement them, and they can feed the baby bees.
Yeah, so what I was saying is that we've all seen times where if you add a frame of bees to a struggling 5 frame or something, all of a sudden it seems like the queen just explodes. She starts laying like you would expect. That's because you infused some additional population. You brought some more resources in. So it's really what's can be holding back brood production is in fact a quality of resources or a quantity of resources that they can bring in.
Right.
And so I think what this is effectively doing is going, hey, this poor quality feed you're giving us can only support, well, like 500 eggs in a time period. And then if we change out your feed source to add this sterol infused, much better feed, they're like, hey, this can support a lot more brood on this because it's nutritionally a lot better for us.
Yeah.
Then we'll lay a lot more.
Yeah.
And therefore we wind up with a lot more larvae, right? Because when you read the article, right, it just says, well, it makes more larvae. And I'm like, you can't, the yeast doesn't make anything, right? It's just a nutrition source, right? You got to convince the queen to actually put eggs in cells. And I think the deal there is that the workers can sense, hey, this is a higher quality feed and we have a lot of it. So go ahead and lay up all you want to lay because we have a food source that we can feed all of that with.
Yeah.
And that's how it shows up as an increased brood quantity.
Yeah. And even in the study, if you read the study, it dipped off when they first started feeding them, and they actually brought more bees in across the board, and the different things, they fed them all different things. And the sterile, the CRISPR-fed yeast is the one that they thrived on. There were other yeasts that they fed them, and then there's other protein patties and stuff that they feed them. So I expect from this, if I made bee feed, I would figure out how to get my hands on this as soon as I can, and then get them to the bees.
That's the question, right? Is because as soon as there's going to be the opportunity for you to go, hey, this is sterile boosted pollen sub. As soon as you have that, and that's going to be $20 an ounce. And then your regular pollen sub is going to be $5 an ounce. It's going to take all of 0 seconds for somebody to take $5 an ounce stuff and relabel that as sterile version and sell it to you for $20 an ounce. And you're going to have absolutely no way to know the difference because it's not going to be like the sterile yeast is going to be, like lime green and it's going to look different, right? So I think the real key there is to be able to see if we can actually, as beekeepers, if we can get a quantity, like you can go out and buy yeast for your baking in a little container, right? So can you buy a container of the yeast?
That would be really cool.
All right. Right. Yeah. So like all we want's the yeast.
Yeah.
Because again, it's not the byproduct. We just want the stuff, the baking yeast
it still requires some preparation, right? But
if you're making your own poly sub, right, you would just take your tablespoon of sterile juiced yeast and add it to your pollen sub and mix it up and feed it, and then you would know that your pollen sub is actually getting sterile boosted yeast.
I wonder if you'd have to wash it too, because like in mead, when you make mead, the yeast falls to the bottom, and it's basically. But
that's after it's consumed. That's after it's been doing its thing.
Yeah, that's what you want is after it's been doing its thing, right? You want the yeast that goes dormant.
No.
Yeah, because you're looking for yeast. So like all of your yeast falls through the bottom.
I'd always associate that with as dead yeast and not live cultured yeast.
It just turns dormant, and because you can take yeast off of a mead thing. Like if you made some mead, you can take the yeast off the bottom and put it into a new batch, warm it up a little bit, to put it into a new batch, and it'll reactivate. So that yeast is still active. It just goes dormant because it's not a, I don't know, whatever it is. It's a yeast, and they poison themselves, and they get to the point where they just can't work in the amount of alcohol they've created. So it should be pretty easy to actually do it. You'd be brewing. I wonder if you could work it with honey. You could make mead off of this yeast.
Well, no, because these yeasts have been specifically genetically engineered not to produce.
Well, they still produce now. They got to produce something, an alcohol of some sort. It's just not a huge amount of the.
Well, our baking yeast, our bread yeasts don't. They typically, because we don't have alcohol as a side effect of our bread making. It's more of just the CO2, right? And so it's the CO2.
Well, CO2 is also that's
the off gassing, right?
Yeah.
And so there's all kinds of different yeasts out there, and the point is this one's been genetically modified to give goodies for pollen subs. Yeah, so that might be on the market in 2026 or who knows when. And the second story we have to talk about
actually ties into the nutrition too, slightly.
Is a research that they did based on. We've done a lot of research on viruses, but I guess this is yet another paper on how viruses affect flight distance and speed.
Yeah, for honeybees.
Because who would have thought that deformed wing virus, if you mess up that delicate wing structure that is already confusing as to how scientists don't understand how honeybees can fly based on physical dimensions of everything. Turns out if you tweak that ever so slightly, it means they want to fly about half as far. Now, I mean, that seems like,
well,
it's water's wet kind of thing.
There is some interesting things in there with that, right? It's because it takes a certain amount of virus in the honeybee to actually express that symptom.
Yeah.
And it's the same with us, right? We have viruses in us all the time.
Yeah.
It's when they go unchecked that all of a sudden it becomes an issue. It's the second one. It's the sac brood that actually is interesting for me.
And the sac brood, they claim, causes them to fly twice as far.
Yeah. So sac brood is like the larva kind of dies.
Have you seen this?
Yeah.
In your hives?
Yeah. I've seen it before. It looks an awful lot like EFB. It looks a lot like heavy mite loads. It kind of dies, and you can pull the whole larva out as one.
I don't know that I've ever done that because most of mine get melty, and either that's EFB, which I've had experience with, or parasitic mite syndrome. I've certainly had deformed wing virus. I mean, I know what that looks like.
Yeah.
But that's all usually associated with just the virus load that comes with high mite loads that we've talked about in the past.
Yeah. But
I don't know that I've ever seen sac brood. And
there's not a good fix for it, right? Like you have to do a.
Well, I was asking you that in pre-show, and like you can't. It's not going to respond to an antibiotic like an EFB.
It's a brood break or replace the queen.
Yeah,
which is a brood break. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a brood break or a brood break. And again, these are like a lot of these are expressed.
I think you were saying better forage, better nutrition.
A lot of these are expressed due to bad forage, right?
But we talked about that and how you actually vaccinate bees, right? And how a lot of their immune system has to do with orally transmitted salivas and
gut
biomes and things. And so to say, hey, you need to go out and get better feed is really an expression of that is how you're going to boost their immune response.
But if you think about, and honeybees they're way different than us. However, you have goats, right? And I've had fish, and we both have dogs. Like, if you feed them bad food, they don't do well.
No.
And like, if you feed us bad food, we don't do well.
Yeah.
So it's the same with honeybees. When they don't have the nutrition that they're supposed to have, they ain't going to do well.
Well, and the second thing is, right, we'll see a lot of this, both DFV and sac brood, SBV, when we have high mite loads, because the mites really move around the viruses a lot and really add pressure.
Yeah.
So, maybe the way to, if you're seeing this, is to do mite counts and see where you are with your mites, and probably a function of a high mite load. And if you just solve your mite load problem, your other viruses will probably come in check anyway. Speaking
of mite load problems, we didn't talk about this one beforehand, but there's a lot of people talking about oxalic acid strips in the hives.
Okay, I thought you were going to mini scorpion, and I was like, man, don't bring up the mini scorpions again.
No, I'm talking oxalic acid strips, and I made my own this year. The hives that I had them on, some of them did okay, some of them didn't. Just kind of didn't like them. They all propolized the hell out of them, like just super propolized with the Swedish sponges.
Yeah, and
then the Viroxan, which is the commercially available ones, are like made out of cardboard.
Really?
Yeah, and it's kind of the high density cardstock stuff, and they chew the heck out of those.
Really?
Yeah, I put 2 in per hive in between the frames, and like you would go back in there, and they would be just chewed to bits. It'd be parts of it there, kind of, but like
over what period of time? Over weeks or months or what?
Months, a couple of months. 2-3 months.
So it still had some time to sit in there and be effective.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it all disappeared in 2 weeks and you're like, well, there goes that treatment.
And I would say that generally I probably had, the 2 strips that I was using was probably too much space on my hives. But the Viroxan did really well. So if you don't want to screw around and make your own, the Viroxan's a good product. However, you only sell it one size, which is enough to treat 20 hives. So you
find a club,
go
find a beekeeping buddy. It's got some more hives
and share.
Are you gonna put more bananas on your hive, sir, and feed them more bananas?
I did earlier this year. They did fine with it. It's
fine. Fall dearth time seems like a perfect time to feed them some bananas.
Maybe I'll go feed them some. I've also seen people feeding watermelon. Like have a watermelon sit out.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know about that. Oh, that was another one I saw. Was somebody asked, I'm active on most forums.
Is this for our Honeybee Hotline segment?
Yeah, it's on Honeybee Hotline segment. I think we're moving there anyway.
Yeah, we are.
We covered there. Yeah, so somebody asked if they could feed maple syrup back to their honeybees. And the answer is no. Don't do that.
Really?
Yeah, because...
That's not how I would have guessed at that answer. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that question, but if you'd asked me, I'd have guessed that it'd been mostly okay.
Yeah, so no, it's really not okay. It's also the reason why you don't boil your sugar water. So HMF.
Oh.
HMF is produced when you boil sugar water, or if you have to boil away a lot of water out of your maple sap.
Yeah.
To make it maple syrup, or if you have high fructose corn syrup and you sit it out in the sunlight in a closed tote and it gets above 104 degrees. It makes HMF. HMF is poisonous to honeybees. They can't digest it, and it does bad things to them. So don't feed them anything that you cooked, right? Can't boil your sugar water. You can heat your sugar water slightly, but you can't boil it.
Yeah, I nuke my 2-to-1. Yeah. I warm it up so that I can dissolve enough sugar in it to get to 2-to-1.
I honestly don't even bother with 2-to-1 anymore, because if I'm feeding 2-to-1 right before fall because they don't have enough weight, I probably missed the boat already, and I'm gonna put a candy board on top instead.
Also for Honeybee Hotline, what if somebody asks you if they took honey off of their hive and you left it with a deep and a medium for overwintering, what would you say about that?
Deep and a medium is fine, but you need to make sure that they have enough honey to make it through winter is one thing. And what you hear, if it's insulated, then like 30 pounds of honey is good. If it's not insulated, you're more like 50. But Spring is actually the main issue. So if they make it, you managed all your mites, and they make it through winter. In spring, you got to be right on top of them because they're going to swarm, right?
I've done a lot of deep and two mediums.
Yeah.
I think that's because the deep and two mediums. I think it's easier to hit that 50 pound mark between that, and it allows me to be a lot more freedom in moving frames around.
Okay.
With the honey frames, the deeps. I just feel like I always get stuck with stuff. Like I leave a medium on because the queen got through the excluder and she laid up in the honey super, and now I've got half a honey super and they hatch out. Now I've got half a honey super on top of a hive, and I'm like, I don't want to leave a half a honey super on top of a hive, and so it allows me to pull that off, move the frames around. So I've been, and then the one deep at the bottom for my brood chamber, I don't have to move it ever. I don't have to lift a second deep off.
Sure.
I've kind of, I did that for a bunch of years. I moved to double deeps up here.
Yeah. I
still run. This year I've got 3 or 4 hives that are in a deep and 2 mediums. So I think a deep and 2 mediums. Now, if it's a smaller hive, my caveat there is what's the population of the hive? Because I think there was a question there about if I have a well-populated hive that I've pulled like 3 honey supers off of,
will it swarm?
Can I pull it all the way down to a deep and a medium? Yeah. And I think the answer there is no.
Well, right now, the fear right now is that it'll swarm right now. And I don't think they'll swarm right now.
I don't think so, but if you pulled like in July,
yes,
if you had a deep and like 5 mediums,
yeah,
and you pulled 3 or 4 mediums off that were all honey, and you try to get them all down into that deep and one medium, I think that's a no-go, and probably that's where you really should be looking at the deep and 2 mediums.
Yeah,
put 1 or 2 of those back on wet.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. But right now, if you're going to pull honey and you're going to push them down into like a deep and a medium, you could still put that medium back on wet right now. You're going to assuming that we get goldenrod. Goldenrod's kind of a shot in the dark, right?
Yeah.
It's a hit or miss around here.
And, if you're going to pull at $15 a pound for honey or, 75 cents a pound for sugar, it seems like feeding back sugar water might be I know a lot of people who do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's interesting this time of year, right? Like sugar is 25. I talked about I open fed. It's for a 25-pound bag of sugar. It's $19 at Kroger, and that's usually the cheapest in our area. And man, they went through that in about 30 minutes. Once they found it, took them a little bit of time, longer than I expected to find it. But once they found it, they were on it.
Droning On is a segment where we talk about what we're doing in the next 2 weeks. I know I'll be continuing to check for weights, and if I got a couple light ones, I'll be putting some top feeders on. I got some top feeders because those deep and 2 mediums I got to pull frames out of the bottom.
Yeah,
and with only 10 deeps, I don't really want to pull 2 out to put a frame feeder in, so I'll put a top feeder on.
Yeah, I don't love the top feeders, so I run double deeps. So I'll put a frame feeder, which it's supposed to only replace 1 frame. It never does. It's always 2.
Oh yeah, or you could get the wider one that holds like 1.5 gallons or 2 gallons and actually takes up the space of 2 frames.
Yeah. So
you don't feel as bad as having to pull out 2 frames.
Yeah, I still usually feed them to get going early in the season. I only feed them like a half a gallon, so that they start taking it and realize where it is. And then once they start taking it and putting it away, then I'll move it up to 1 gallon and make sure that they're up to weight. But yeah, I'll be feeding, and I'll probably open feed some more.
So you got a trip coming up too.
Yeah, I'm going to be. Well, I'll have to be leaning on my coworker to cover some of this. But yeah, I'm going over to Spain, and we're going to go to España, and it's a train trip. We'll be there for about 2 weeks. We're going to go to Madrid and Lisbon and Barcelona, and hopefully, I'm really trying hard to line up an apiary tour, an apiary visit, get to see some of the yellow-legged wasps. Right, because that's what they have over there. And
yellow-legged wasps, man, I don't know. All I know is that Apis mellifera came from over there, and European honeybee, and that's about it.
Yeah, there's yellow-legged wasp that's an issue over there right now. It's another pest, but
Well, don't bring any of them home.
No planters. No need to. It is interesting to price things in different places, and I was shocked at the pricing for a beekeeping tour.
So you went and you found like a local beekeeper that offered this opportunity, or this was some sort of adventure that you set up through?
It's like an adventure tour. Like, I did a lot of searching. I searched the Reddit forums for, hey, going to Spain.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff. And the feedback I got was, why don't you look online? Like, yeah, it's very, very helpful. So I found,
the old-fashioned, let me Google that for you?
Yeah. I found 2 apiary tours on 2 different dates, but they both were similarly priced. And one of them I just got turned down because I didn't have a group of 13 to go with me. So their minimum group size was 13 people, which I thought was a little high.
I ballparked this when you asked, and off the hip, I shot for $200 US.
Yeah, and it's $200 per person for an apiary tour.
And most of that had to do with having just gone on an Alaskan cruise and what the average excursion cost, regardless if that was totem poles or hiking or salmon cook or any of the other, gold panning, garbage, whatever the entry level walk around and do some stuff for 4 hours cost was, and that was about $200.
Yeah.
And it felt very much like one of those type of things.
Yeah.
And, and now when you said, well, you had to have a group of 13, that sounds exactly like the kind of deal that I was talking about. And so that's where I ballparked my 200 at.
Yeah. They didn't care at all that I was a master beekeeper either. They didn't care.
Oh, I heard you getting a certificate.
I should be getting a certificate in the mail. I asked for the certificate in the mail. Really, I want a patch. I want a patch so that I can move from jacket to jacket that says Master Beekeeper.
Velcro patch like his Eagle Scout. I got a badge on my.
It'll eventually it'll eventually turn black like the rest of my suits do, right? Like the front of my suits do black.
It's almost like you had somebody with a fancy embroidery machine that could embroider that onto some shirts or something.
She's been busy. And is quilt weekend.
Well, it is coming up on the fall when we are less busy, and then we'll have winter, and we're going to have some T-shirts made up that say "spicy," and that's rude. 2 of my favorite catchphrases for when they get stung.
It is. You know exactly when Steve gets stung. It's either rude or that's rude, and then you're like, oh, he's going to suit up.
Next couple of weeks, we also got some more cutouts coming up. I think we're doing one tomorrow in a little shack of a house.
Yeah, and then we've got one that's underneath siding that may or may not be a cutout. That's like just interested bees. I think it's a dead hive.
Yeah,
and then another one at the apartment.
That's probably a hive that was a hive and got sprayed, and now it's a dead hive.
Yeah, it could be. Another one at the apartment, and then we got a call for one out in the farm in Morton, which we may or may not do, depending on how that goes.
Picks up in the fall, I guess, because we did like 3 or 4 in the fall last year also.
Every year, yeah. It's very strange.
And I always feel bad because they think you're going to do something with the bees, and I'm like, it's just really hard to rehome them in our atmosphere.
I've got like six small hives. 1, 2, 3, 6... maybe 8 small hives.
I mean, I guess if I could combine them with my 3 5-framers I've got currently floating around, then I would certainly be.
Yeah,
I thought about taking my 5-framers, throwing them up into 10 frames, and taking them over to the buckwheat and see if they will do something on the buckwheat.
Yeah, you could probably do that.
So I might do that in the next 2 weeks.
Tried to talk my mom into planting some buckwheat. I think that from seed to bloom is 3 weeks. Something like that.
That seems really short.
It does seem really short.
Because radishes are only 21 days.
Yeah, but I think it's along that time frame. So October 15th.
Green beans are 55 days though. Like green beans are hella long.
Yeah, October 15th is our first frost date here. So basically, you count back from then because buckwheat will not stand for frost. So,
I mean, that sounds like 6 weeks. Because we're August 20-something. 24th?
August. Well, we're recording this.
So I guess that's 5 weeks?
Yeah. So
Doesn't sound like a lot.
No.
2 more podcasts.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Wrap it up here. If you're interested, get the Patreon out there. We've got some places where you can leave us some comments, some feedback.
Yep.
If you've got questions, Discord, comments down below. If you're on the YouTubes, we appreciate everybody listening and tuning in for next week. Till then, find your beekeeper buddy to go do some beekeeping with. Thanks.